Welcome back. I'm Beau Keyte, and you are now inside my Short Stops program. This program is really designed to increase the adaptability of your organizations. Pure and simple. That's all it is. This is my second short stop. In my first short stop, I asked you to create critical thinking inside your organization to better address the issues and opportunities you face in your transformation. This is really hard to do. I'm asking you to jump paradigms from rushing to solutions to deliberate investigation of what the heck is really going on so you can solve the issues and move forward. The good news is, the more often you practice this, the easier it gets. Now, in this second short stop, I'm not trying to bend your mind like that. I'm simply suggesting that you supplement your current communication efforts in such a way to enable better engagement and better dialogues. So with that, let's get started. Insight number 2 is titled Finding Hidden Capacity. And I'd like to start this with a comparison between continuous improvement and Neapolitan ice cream. Now, this ice cream is in a carton that has 3 flavors: chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. You might also be aware of Ben and Jerry's series Half Baked, in which they take 2 different flavors and swirl them inside the same carton. One way or another, there's several flavors inside a carton. And I've often thought about continuous improvement in this manner. There are lots of flavors of continuous improvement. There's DMAIC, there's Agile, there's Lean. Sometimes we have theory of constraints, lots of flavors. And the great thing about that is that there is one overriding theme amongst them, and that is putting our capacity to better use. Now, we don't really talk about capacity very much as we move through continuous improvement, but the reality is capacity always has been and always will be the central focus of our efforts. What are we doing with the capacity that we have? And we have lots of capacity, whether we are in food processing or manufacturing, maybe in warehousing and distribution, customer service and call centers, some type of service industry, maybe we're in research, or a global supply chain. In each case, we're dealing with how we work with our capacity, and we have lots of it, which brings me to my main point. Several times each year, I'm in a room with my client, and somebody in that room says, gee, if we only had more blank, we could really solve this problem. If we had more people, more equipment, more IT support, everything would be fine. And whether they know it or not, they just put capacity on the table. And the assumption they have is we're out of capacity. We're doing the best we can with what we have. I reject that assumption. That's not been my experience. But if you hear it, you can grab that capacity argument that was just put on the table and lean in and say, you know what? We only have a fixed amount of capacity here. And you might be right. But before we jump that far, let's first test it, because what I would like to do is use the investments in people and equipment we've already made and just do better with what we have. And in that way, maybe you pull that person in and engage them and they want to play. But once you do that, I would suggest a simple visual to keep the conversation going. So let me share with you what I've shared with my clients. The concept is a bucket of capacity. It's just a bucket, and you fill it to the rim with all of your capacity, and that's all you have. So if it's a 5-gallon bucket, you have 5 gallons of capacity. Now, how I actually use this concept is a little bit different. I change the bucket to a stacked bar chart, but I still call it a bucket. So I'm going to use my cursor to show you what's going on here. We have the current state on the left, and this is the top of the bucket. That's all the capacity we have. And inside this bucket, we're using our capacity sometimes to do some good work, that's in blue, and some other work, I'll call it NVA or non-value added work. And that's what we would rather not do, but we're doing it anyway right now. That's the current state. And in the future state, we still have as much capacity as we have now, but we've rearranged the work. So we do more good work and less non-value added. It's as simple as that in terms of the concept. Now let me share 3 examples with you to show you how clients have embraced the capacity bucket. The first one is a generic manufacturing example. And in this case, the top of the bucket is 40 hours of work, one shift. And in this shift, we make 400 parts in that week. But we also spend time in our capacity doing setup and maintaining the equipment. And when we hear someone say, gee, if we only had more equipment, they might be right or not. I would challenge you on this and say, listen, right now we're making 400 parts and we're spending a lot of time on maintenance and setup. Why don't we try to increase our production by, say, 50%, if that's your goal, to make 600 parts? But we can only do that if we address the issues we have in spending so much time in setup and maintenance here. So when we raise this bar by 50% over here, maintenance and setup spill out the top. Spill out the top. Hey, we only have 40 hours. So we have to cut back on that to be more productive with our equipment. And that's what my clients have been doing. Moving into a healthcare example, I walked into a home hospice organization outside Baltimore a few years ago. And inside the first 2 hours, someone said, gee, we really need to hire more physicians. We really can't get by with the number of physicians we have. And the execs looked at the person and says, well, that's nice to hear, but we're not making any money. And if we hire more physicians, we'll lose even more because on the current state down here, we can only do 3 visits a day. And as long as we are stuck on 3 visits a day, we won't be making any money. So I asked, how many visits do you need? And they said, we need 4 visits. On 4 visits, we'll actually start making money again. Now, the cool thing about home hospice, you may not know this, is that the physicians do house calls. They do house calls with patients and spend a lot of time with them. That's why they can only do 3 visits a day, because they travel in bad Baltimore traffic that robs us of capacity, and they do a lot of documentation of their visits. So when we started looking at this, the top of the bucket, once again, was 40 hours, 1 week, and there was 15 visits, so this is just per day. We said, listen, you spend time, good time with your patients, 3 visits a day, but you have a lot of your capacity really absorbed in travel and documentation. And if you want to get to 4 over here on the future goal, the only way you can do that is to work on travel and documentation. The reality was they couldn't do a whole lot about travel. It's just bad in Baltimore. But they could do a lot about documentation. So they spent quite a bit of time working on the documentation, streamlining it, and they actually got to 4 visits a day. Now, that may not seem like a lot to you, but it's a 33% improvement in productivity, and they were now making money with the same number of physicians that they started with when I arrived. The last example is Cessna business jets. In 2004, America was coming out of a mini recession. And when that happens, businesses buy lots of business jets. And Cessna was really busy. Now, you may not know this, but the jet's outside skin and the inside mechanics are identical for each model, but the inside cabin is not. It's custom. It's customized for every single customer. It's always different. So when they go through the manufacturing and assembly process, they actually need lots of different engineering drawings for each plane to support the manufacturing assembly of the cabin. And they couldn't keep up with the drawings. The drawings could not keep up with the plane production. So on the left here in the current operation, once again, the top of this is 40 hours, 1 week, and they were doing X drawings per week, and it just wasn't enough. People were asking for more engineers, and the executives were saying, we can't find them. We laid them off a few years ago, and they left town. We had to do more with what we have. So we took a look and found that they were spending a lot of time reworking these drawings and also a lot of time reviewing these drawings in meetings. And we basically said, how good do you need to be? And they said at least 30%, hopefully 50%. Then we could keep up with the manufacturing side of this effort. So they dug in, they worked for probably 6 months, and they got to a 40% increase in drawings, which was good enough to keep up with production. And they did so by working on the rework of the drawings and also revamping the review meetings. So they changed how they used their capacity to do more good work. Now, these are 3 examples. Whoops. And there's a lot of good work behind these visuals. It takes a lot to get there. Most of my clients use value stream maps to look at what's going on inside that scope, where those non-value added components of work are and how much is where. And they do lots of analysis and lots of pilots, and lots of tests and rollouts and stuff to get there. And they're communicating during this time. But if you're not inside that issue, it might be hard to understand the maps, the data analysis, the root cause, all this other kind of stuff. Those visuals with the buckets, put it center. Say, this is what we're really doing. Details are behind here, but this is what we're really doing. This is where we're going to go. And in this way, we can engage people who aren't that close to the action and have a better dialogue about what's going on and what the impact is. So I encourage you to think about using this simple visual and the concept of a capacity bucket and the argument of how we use our organization capacity to its best use. Now, let's close this one out. Extra capacity has always been hiding right in front of us. But if we discuss it as capacity and visualize it in something simple that people can really see immediately, then we have a chance to engage them and have way better dialogues than what we now might be having. And I can't emphasize that there's a lot of work in the trenches to get to the right side or the future state. Now, it's time to don the hat. This is the end of the teaching. My question to you is, what do you understand about how you use your capacity today and the issues that you face? So it's time for an assignment. Grab one of your current improvement efforts. I don't care if it's big or small. You have to start getting used to putting together capacity buckets. Visualize your current state in a capacity bucket, breaking it down into 3 to 6 categories. Now, the reality is you might have 12. That doesn't matter. Most of your time is spent in far less. I've usually seen 3 or 4 categories to fill up most of the capacity. Then visualize your future state by first filling in your goal, how good you want to be, and then see what's spilling out the top. Those are your opportunities. And once you do this, it'll take a while. Bring your work to your office hour. Now I have Friday here. It could be anytime. I mentioned last time how important this is. This is critical for those clients who make a habit of getting teams together to share work, challenge, collaborate. For those clients, they learn faster, better, and deeper than my other clients. So please, please keep this going. This is my commercial for our next time. Insight number 3. How do the best leaders avoid being overstretched? And I have a hint. It's not what they do, it's what they don't do. So that's it for insight number 2. I wish you luck. I hope this helps make things easier. I hope you continue to find ways to improve the adaptability, engage more people, have great dialogues, because that's what it's all about. So good luck, and I hope to share more with you soon.